This is otherwise state champ Alex Thompson. This is Josh Elwer from the University of Northern Iowa, and you're listening to Potentially Dangerous on IAwrestle.
Hey, is this heaven?
No, it's Iowa.
From high school to international wrestling, on the mat and beyond, this is the Potentially Dangerous podcast with the guys from IAwrestle.
If you're a fighter, you like a fight. If you're an American, you like a fight. If you're an Iowa Hawkeye, you know you're going to get a fight.
Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes and all your podcast-friendly apps. And follow us on social media platforms at IAwrestle. Time to strap it up and get to the show.
All right. Holy smokes. This is episode 79 of the Potentially Dangerous podcast, sponsored by MyHouse Sportswear, taking care of us. So hopefully you guys go to our website, check out MyHouse, check out their gear. Lars, we have been struggling with podcasts lately, but I think we're going to make up for it.
Yeah, it's been a little busy in the stretch run of the season here. It's gotten pushed to the back a little bit, but yeah, I think we could go for hours tonight if we had to.
No, you're not kidding. It has been an incredible 7-day stretch for IAwrestle. We've hit some personal bests ourselves, but in terms of just what's been going on, we covered state duels, state tournament, commitment news. There's a new coach at one of the big three programs in Iowa. Got a wrestler kind of kicked off the team. I mean, there's just so much to get to. So we're gonna start out chronologically. Lars, you were one of our guys that manned the state tournament every day. And for those that don't know, in Iowa, it's a 4-day grind. State duels are on Wednesday, followed by the traditional tournament Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So it's 4 grueling days, and you made it through.
Yeah, it's always an adventure. Like I say, it's long days. It's 7 in the morning till who knows what time at night, and it gets to be a lot. This year was a little bit different as well. We had to kind of get our own bearings with the whole media situation and not being on the floor, being in the back room, things like that. So Wednesday during duels was a lot of figuring out what we could and couldn't do, how we were going to cover it. But it wasn't the easiest thing we've ever done, but I think we did well. We focused a lot more on, personal stories, interviews, things like that. So, it was actually a lot of fun. There's times when you wish you were a fan, you could just sit there and cheer for whoever you wanted, do your thing. But seeing the reactions of guys coming back in that tunnel, the ups, the downs, being able to share some of that with people in interviews, things like that, you just can't beat it. Just those raw emotions of the high school state tournament you just can't get any better than that.
I'm trying to think because obviously I haven't been doing a lot of state tournaments. I know you've been to quite a few. Just as a fan, you've done at least one more than me as far as a media member. And so you've been on the floor a lot more. And, as far as I go, like you said, we kind of focused on personal stories this year, interviews. That's kind of where I've been focused on. So I just kind of want to get your perspective. Like you said, they moved media off the floor. Wasn't that a little bit difficult to – I know when I'm out there and like you said, you see reactions in the tunnel, but seeing the results happen then right there in front of you on the mat, it's a lot different feel, and it's definitely something to get used to, isn't it?
Yeah, in all honesty, I came away from state this year feeling like I didn't see a lot of wrestling, which is really weird to say when you're at that arena for, 13, 14 plus hours a day for 4 straight days and you don't see that much wrestling. We kind of took turns of certain people's being in the media room, certain people on the floor. People probably saw us walking around with walkie-talkies, things like that, trying to communicate with each other for who was in the back and not. But when you were in that media room, you just couldn't see anything. You couldn't get any feel for it. Like, I felt really bad for some of the newspaper guys that were just stuck in there writing the whole time and didn't get to see any of it. There was some TVs in there. There was 2 TVs with 4 mats of peace in there on opposite ends of the room. So basically in the morning you had to pick if you wanted to sit in front of mats 1 through 4, or do you want to sit in front of mats 5 through 8 and watch them on a TV. And the other thing about it is quiet. Like, you're at the state tournament. It's wild. It's loud. People are into it. And you're sitting in that media room, and it was just dead silence half the time. It was just really eerie and weird and just not the same. You want to be in the action. You want to be able to see it. You want that, oohs and ahs from the crowd. And hey, I got to get my eyes over on mat 1 or mat 4, wherever it's at, the action's at, you're paying attention. I mean, you're still working. You might have your head down some, but you're caught up in the action, and you just didn't get that feeling this year, and it was really hard to not experience all that.
It definitely, I mean, I could tell just from my first year to my second year how much of a change that was. But, the wrestling was great. We saw a lot of good team races. We saw a lot of good individual accomplishments take place. We can kind of start with 1A. We saw Lisbon come away with the traditional team title. Not that surprising coming in. They were, figured to be the top team. Alex Thompson comes away with his 3rd title. And he's also Dan Gable Wrestler of the Year for his performance. Was there anything big about 1A other than that kind of stood out to you?
You had a lot of it. I would say, Cale Happel, obviously, being the only champion for Lisbon was maybe just a little bit of surprise, but, they wrestled really well up and down the lineup, had some surprises from guys like, Ryan Moorfield, guys like that really came through for Lisbon big time. It was fun watching guys like Slade Cifuentes and Jared Brinkman picking up another title. Obviously everybody knows Alex Thompson. Trent Johnson, for those of you who haven't watched the interview with Trent Johnson after winning state, please go to IAwrestle, go to YouTube, find it. I've always admired this guy as a wrestler, but listening to his interview just made you gain that much more, appreciation for him as a person as well. And then the other thing that stood out to me was that 120 bracket, going in, it was, hey, Gable Fox is number 1. He's beating all these guys. Hey, Brady Kiner's number 2. He was a runner-up last season. He hasn't been taken down in 2 years. And then there was Brock Henderson kind of at number 3, people kind of forgetting about him. And all he does is goes and wins this bracket, takes out Kiner in the finals, takes down Kiner in the finals. And so that to me was a really big run. Brock Henderson kind of stood out for me in 1A.
Well, yeah, that was, that was a lot of fun to watch. I'm going to throw out my boy that I love to watch, Donnie Schmidt of Wapsie Valley. Dude was just a straight brawler this last weekend. He wrestled Brock's brother, Brady Henderson, I think in the quarterfinals. And it was just a wild match where there was a takedown that was called that got overturned that was, pretty questionable. And then there was a takedown that probably should have been called that wasn't. And then it went to overtime, and Donnie Schmidt just kind of battled through a lot. He had another tough semifinals match. They ran into Thompson. So that was kind of fun, but I think we hit every big story. Then I want to give a quick shout out while we're moving through these classes here, Lars. Kirk Crittenden put together, returning points, what the kind of real early look, not even counting who's going to come in, freshmen or backups moving into the lineup, but looking forward to next year. Kirk's got Lisbon coming back. They return the most points. Don Bosco's going to, sitting in second. Missouri Valley's third. Underwood, real strong performance. They're coming back with the 4th most points. Logan James, Blake Thompson, Alex Thompson's little brother, had a really strong tournament. So Underwood's looking really strong. And Wapsie Valley's in the top 5 too. But Lars, we were just kind of chatting at the state tournament, and you dropped some knowledge that I don't know if it's official yet about maybe a 2A school dropping down that could probably going to push Wapsie Valley out if it's true. Do you want to kind of put that news out there, what you know?
if it comes through, they're not just going to push Wapsie Valley out. I think they're good enough to compete with Lisbon for a team title. So word has been that Denver and Tripola have both supposedly signed off for splitting their wrestling programs, so that Denver will go out on its own. To my knowledge, they don't have a varsity wrestler returning from Tripola, so they basically have the same lineup. And if enrollments stay the way they are, Denver would probably be 1A school next year. And I'm telling you right now, this team is going to be fire next year. They were full of freshmen and sophomores, and they got some more freshmen coming next year, and they got pretty much all their point scorers back. So, I expect them to contend, whether they're in 1A or whether they're in 2A. I think they're going to contend, but it sure sounds like Denver will be wrestling in 1A next year.
And they're probably, like you said, going to be stupid good. You also already commented that it doesn't matter whether if they're Denver, Tripola, 2A, or just, Denver in 1A. They're going to be a title contending team no matter what class they end up in. So with that, we'll kind of transition into this 2A. Lars, I'm not going to try and steal all the storylines for this class because I know how much you love it. So I will say, one of the big storylines coming into the finals was the Solon-New Hampton battle for the traditional team title. You had Drew and Bryce West both in the finals for Solon. And then you had Mike Millage, Keaton Gertz, and Ryan Gorman from New Hampton all in the finals. And there was a chance for, New Hampton to just kind of control their own destiny. There was a chance for Solon to control their own destiny by sweeping their two finals. And I would say 120 and 126 went the way we thought. Bryce West wins. Mike Millage wins and beating Drew West. So it all comes down to Ryan Gorman in the 160 match. And Julian Broderson from Davenport wins that match. So Solon gets the team title. That was a huge storyline. I didn't see that coming. I thought New Hampton was winning it. But there's a lot of individual storylines that happened at that class too.
Well, yeah, and I mean, there's more to even the team storylines. Like you say, it was down to the wire. I mean, I know Keaton Gertz was mad at himself for not getting the major, which would have also run the team title. But, I mean, the guy wins the second state title. There's nothing wrong. I hope Keaton doesn't get down on himself about it. Another, storyline out of that whole thing was Grayson Dahl from Solon had broke his leg about a month prior to the state tournament. A little bit more than that maybe, but it was healing up. He got through sectional, got through districts, felt pretty good coming in the state tournament, was able to win a first-round match before re-breaking his leg. But without those points from that first-round match, Solon finishes in second place. So, it was a tough tournament for Grayson Dahl, but him being able to tough it out and score some points for Solon was enough to push him over the top. So that was an interesting storyline to it, and it was just an incredible team race. First ever team trophy for Solon, so hats off to them. But like you said, there's a lot of other big things. I know a lot of people were really looking forward to that 113 bracket. You had Fout, Reeves, Doolittle, and Aiden Reeves. This guy, people have doubted him at times. I'm done. I can't ever doubt Aiden Reeves again. All this guy came in and did was beat number 4 Caleb Olenzak, then beat defending runner-up Eric Fout, Fargo All-American, and then go and beat Drake Doolittle. So not only did he win the state title, he beat all the top guys in that bracket on the way there.
He ran the gauntlet for sure.
He took on all comers, came out on top. So just an incredible tournament for Aiden Reeves. Bryce West wins his third state title. You kind of mentioned him there. He wins his third state title, and also, I think a lot of people missed this one, but he's now tied for the most wins in Iowa high school history with Max Thompson at 210. So Bryce West finished his career at 210-3 with 3 state titles. So, he's got to be remembered as some of the greats to ever come through. So that was fun to watch. Another storyline, you had 2 guys as 4-time finalists and 3-time champs. Chase Schultz, Ryan Leisure, both lost in the finals their freshman year. And then, these last 3 years have been just pretty dominant, going and winning their third title. Leisure battled through a ton of injuries at the end of the year. Just didn't matter. This guy just guts it out, gets the job done, and wins. So it was fun to see those two, go all the way through. Tristan Wirfs was kind of a fun story at heavyweight. He came into the season, I believe, close to 35 pounds overweight. He's just a monster. For those who haven't seen him, going to play football at Iowa. Coach Lay, Coach Truitt talk him into coming back out for wrestling his senior year, get him down to weight. He goes and wins a state title. So I know Tristan was just ecstatic that he had come back out, that he got it done. So that was fun to watch. And another one, it's granted it might not have been the biggest bracket or the best bracket in the state, but Bryce Esmoil coming through his junior year had his closest match of the tournament. Ross, I don't know if you realize this one was 13-0. So he had 2 falls, 13-0 in the quarters, and then had a 15-0 tech fall in the finals. So a pretty impressive run through the tournament there as well.
He wasn't like he was a bum last year. I think he took third, right?
Yeah, he lost an overtime match in the semis and came back for third.
So yeah, he definitely wasn't a bum last year, but I don't know. I don't really want to say flip the switch, but he definitely turned it on for this state tournament, and that was a nice moment for him after he won, going over and hugging his mom for sure. And, just kind of sticking with this 2A, you talk about Bryce West winning his third most wins in Iowa State history. His brother Drew, was in the finals there at 126. He's a 3-time finalist. Got that. He was state champ as a freshman, correct?
Yeah, he had his one state title, yep.
And then he ran into Thompson, I think, the other 2 years. But
yeah, Thompson Village, so it's hard to take too much away out of that run.
Yeah, so the West Twins, I think they're the last big storyline in Iowa high school that we have. I think they're top 100 recruits, maybe 150. Drew's a little bit lower than Bryce, I think, when it comes to rankings like that. But when you're talking about 80 versus 120 in high school, it's a pretty narrow margin. But
this one for you. Drew had 4 career losses and only 1 state title. I believe he ended 207 or 208 and 4 and had 1 state title. 3 of his 4 losses were at the state tournament. The other one was to a Missouri state champion in Independence this year.
Well, there you go. So, I mean, they're both, they've been good wrestlers since they stepped on the mat their freshman year for Highland Riverside. I think that was pretty obvious that they were going to be good, somebody we were going to talk about in the state. And, we head into, it's late February, we're getting close to March, and these 2 are uncommitted. They're not only the top prospects remaining in Iowa, but they're some of the top prospects remaining in the country. So I have a feeling, we're going to have somebody on our team, cough Lars, that's probably going to be hot on this trail. And, you guys should be following at Lars IAwrestle I just got a feeling you're going to be the one that breaks that news, bud.
I got some connections there. We'll see what we can get done.
That's right. To kind of finish up 2A before we move into the 3A, just again, Kirk putting out that returning points. We kind of hit on West Liberty with Bryce Esmoil winning, but they returned the most points for next year out of state qualifiers. Will Esmoil, Bryce's little brother, and Joe Kelly, both, just 3 guys returning there for points. Joe Kelly was a finalist, so they got a lot of potential there for West Liberty. Ballard is second. We told you Denver Tripolo is going to be a title contender. I mean, they returned 53 points in 2A. That's pretty tough to beat. Davenport Assumption, always tough. They had 2 champs, Matt Robertson, Julian Broderson. And then South Tama's right there at 5, New Hampton nipping on their heels at 6. We don't think they're probably going to go anywhere either. So 2A is going to be, it's still going to be fun next year, Lars. I'm sure you're excited for that.
Yeah, I am. And the other thing with that is, Webster City's sitting at 10, Jeff Doolittle and Olson listed. But don't forget, the number 1 heavyweight, Cooper Lawson, got injured halfway through the year, missed the rest of the season. So, you throw on some some high placing points onto that score, and that's going to bump Webster City right back up. They're going to be in that mix as well next year.
Boom. Perfect. Lars just dropped some bombs for you. Then we moved to 3A, and, as far as the team race goes, it was boring. Southeast Polk made it boring. They wrapped it up before we had, I think, on Friday night, didn't they?
Yeah, it was pretty well done. It wasn't much of a race.
So Southeast Polk, hats off to Jason Christensen and Jessamine Smith and the entire Southeast Polk crew. They pull off another title for the Rams. Really, really strong performances. Obviously, I think the biggest controversy, it's obviously big because we got Des Moines TV stations talking about it, doing their sound off. We got Flow Wrestling putting out an article on it. But the biggest controversy came at 220 pounds where Wyatt Reed of North Scott was wrestling Rocky Lombardi of Valley, West Des Moines. This is probably the 5th time they've wrestled this year. And I'm not exaggerating when I say 5th. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Could have been more. I don't know.
I think it was something like that. Reed won the first one, I think, and Lombardi ran off, I want to say, 3 straight before the final.
Yeah, so, these two have seen each other a lot just this year. Lombardi, has a lead going into the end of the match. If you haven't seen it, there's videos on Facebook. Like I said, Flow Wrestling's got something, so you can go check it out for yourself. But Lombardi's got, the match in hand. He's got a 1-point lead, 4 seconds left. They do a restart, and Reed shoots off the whistle. Lombardi sprawls. The ref calls a stall call on Lombardi, ties the match up, sends it to overtime. And then in overtime, we get a takedown by Reed. It was a quick 2 call, and regardless, Wyatt's a 2-time state champ. No one's going to take that away from him. We're not suggesting Lombardi deserves it either. Just that he got hosed, I guess is what I'm saying. But Lars, what did you think of the match? Did you watch it?
Yeah, I saw some of it, live. We were there at the tournament. I was kind of on the floor at that point. And then I went back and watched the last few seconds and overtime a few times. This is a hard thing to talk. I don't want to take anything from Wyatt Reed. This guy's a stud. He's always been a stud. He's a 2-time state champ, going to Nebraska. But it is tough to watch. You really feel for Rocky. You feel like that ref didn't have to be a part of that match. He didn't have to jump in there and make that decision. It was a sprawl. It wasn't like he backed all the way out of bounds. He sprawled. To me, that's not stalling. Yes, maybe there was other things leading up to it, but it's still just a sprawl. That's a wrestling move. It's not a stall. It's a move. So to see that happen and cost him a state title was really tough to watch. Like you said, the takedown was close. To me, it probably shouldn't have been called either. I don't think that call was quite as terrible, quite as blatant. But the stall call to me was just really heart-wrenching for anybody from Valley to watch. I don't agree with the call. I wouldn't have made that call. So, it's tough. But huge shout-out to Rocky Lombardi, first and foremost, for that kind of situation, that tough of a call for your last high school match, to handle it with the kind of class that Rocky Lombardi handled that situation with, and shook his hand, shook the ref's hand, came off the mat, did an interview, handled every situation to deal with it with complete class. Rocky Lombardi made a really big fan in me. If I wasn't already, I'm a bigger fan now than I ever was before that.
Yeah, you're 100% right in saying that. When you think about the losers of the state finals don't get interviewed, and really the losers of any match usually don't get interviewed. So the fact that, Lombardi, we forget that these guys are just 18 years old. They're young men. Contrary to what we think, and even as many times as we interview them, IAwrestle and their local newspapers, they don't have a lot of experience being exposed to the media. So I think you're right. That's something that shouldn't be overlooked, how Rocky handled himself in that situation. Props to Wyatt for continuing to wrestle. You're down in that situation. that's what you got to do. But I 100% agree with you that I don't know if I would have made those calls. And part of me, the reason that I say that is because, like we've said, these two have wrestled. This was their 5th time. They're both ranked in the top 10 in the nation at 220 pounds. You almost just feel like you deserve better. You deserve to see a non-controversial win for Wyatt or a non-controversial win for Rocky. It's just, you kind of want that satisfaction of knowing they got it done by themselves. But in another, we're not really going to talk about it too much, but we got War at West Gym coming up, and hats off to Rocky for saying, he could have hung it up right there and said, I'm focusing on football. But he said, I'm willing to come wrestle Wyatt at the War at West Gym, and not saying Wyatt ducked him because he didn't. He would have been more than willing to take the match, but, you can't really do anything about, he's got a family trip. They're taking spring break, and there's nothing you can really do about that when, a family sinks money into going somewhere together. So I think they would have retaken this match, and they would have, Wyatt has no problem in saying I'm the best guy. So I'm really proud of both those guys, because I think it's really hard. It's got to be hard for Wyatt to hear all these people say, you didn't deserve that, including Flow Wrestling saying it. It's got to be hard, but they're both handling it with class.
Yep, absolutely. And hopefully we can maybe try to find somebody else for Rocky. I'd like to see him out there again. Let him have one big last showing on the wrestling mat and leave it all out there with a great match.
If we're not careful, Rocky's just going to pin him. That's just what Rocky does. The other big storyline that I know of in 3A was Brody Teskey. He was the 3A Dan Gable Wrestler of the Year, winning his 3rd state title. So that makes him and Alex Thompson, they're both juniors. They're both coming back for, potential 4-timers, joining recent joinees, Max Thompson, Carter Happel, joining that elite list. So other than that, did you have any other individual highlights?
The funny thing with 3A this year is it didn't feel like there was a lot of great finals matches, because there's just so many hammers in 3A. Like you have guys like, Colin Shriver and Brody Teskey and Nelson Brands and Tristan Lara and Zach Barnes and Coleman and Lyon. I mean, these guys, Costello, it feels like they didn't have that many problems, but it's not because these other guys aren't great. Those guys are just absolute D1 lock studs. So it's fun watching them out there, regardless of, if they're pinning guys or doing whatever. It was still fun to watch. But you just didn't get that feeling like there was those really intense moments like in 1A and 2A where, a team race or Millage West match where it was so close. You didn't have as many of those. Actually, in the semis, there was a lot of better matches. It seemed like, you had Bennett and Biscaglia, with Biscaglia able to get the revenge there. And, for those who haven't seen Austin Yant versus Nelson Brands, another incredible match. Nelson, everybody talks about, he was tested twice. Yant and Lara both gave him an absolute run for his money, but, give Nelson the credit. He was resilient. He got through it, was able to win those matches and get his 2nd state title. So it was really fun to watch, some of these guys perform out there. Hats off to Western Dubuque. This is a program team that kind of maybe gets put in the background a little bit in 3A. Everybody talks about Fort Dodge and Valley and Polk and some of those. But Western Dubuque's been just coming on. So hats off to Coach Paul Cleary, 3 state champions this year. And that program just kind of keeps coming and getting better and better. So I definitely want to give them a shout out as well for a great performance.
Yeah, and foolish me, I forgot, Marcus Coleman picks up his 3rd title. That was a pretty big moment for Ames. And then I saw this on Twitter. I didn't, bother to confirm it because it was kind of just, it could be a fun fact, but Joel Shapiro, 160, he wins the state title there. And somebody, I think it was Oldham's dad, said that he's Valley West Des Moines' first ever undefeated state champion. So that's wow. Pretty cool. That's a pretty cool moment if that's 100% true. And, we love Joel Shapiro. Guy's a hammer. And then just wrapping up state tournament here, looking at 3A returning points. This will be up. If you're listening to this came up today on IAwrestle. I can't remember if this was true last year, but returning the most point is Fort Dodge. They got 93.5 points coming back, which seems like a ton. It kind of helps having, they got 3 guys in the top 3. They qualified 6, 7, 8. Southeast Polk sitting in second. I'm sure they're going to find a way to reload. I don't doubt that at all. Waukee sitting strong at number 3. Valley's kind of, dropping off. They're sitting in 4th, but, kind of got to remember Nick Oldham sitting there. He took 5th at 106 this year. He was a finalist a year ago. Definitely got some, upward movement potential. Glenwood is currently 5th, returning the most points, and Johnson's right behind them. Could be some news with Glenwood, but, we kind of heard a little bit of a rumor that Sherry might be looking to transfer out of Glenwood. I don't know how strong that is, but hey, man, if you hear it, you might as well put it out there, right?
No better time than now, I guess.
No better time than now. So, okay, Lars, we're sitting there, we're working our butts off at the state tournament, and we get these messages about a certain someone coming that's been in talks with Iowa State, coaching situation. We dig, because that's what we do. We dig, we talk to sources, and, we put a tweet out there. February 17th, Tony Hager does. He's got Dresser, airplane to Ames. And I feel like that set off a firestorm. Friday night, that's what that was. Friday night, we put that out there, and then just like, boom, we got 3 different sites, putting out articles. Kevin Dresser's been offered the job, and then we got, people saying he's taken the job, people saying, no, he hasn't officially accepted the job. But hey, lo and behold, today is Wednesday. Dresser's introduced to the media as the Cyclones' 8th head coach in program history. So let's just go ahead and talk about on the surface, Lars. What do you think of the addition of Dresser to Iowa State?
I think it's an absolute slam dunk. I mean, if you can hire a coach away from really at this point a top 5 program, you got to take that. I mean, there's just no question about it. He's one of the best coaches in the nation. He's helped build that program from, that program was next to nothing, 2 years before he took it. Brands had a little bit going, but then, obviously he took some of the guys with him, so it was kind of back to not a lot after he left. And Kevin Dresser comes in from the high school ranks, and within, 8 years is winning team trophies and, just building almost looked like it was just going to be a dynasty out there where you just keep it rolling. And to get him back, I know he's an Iowa guy. I know his mom's back close to Ames, was part of the allure for him. But to get him, I remember when this first came open, and we're, as you say, we dig. We try to find stuff out, and there was hints, there was stuff out there saying, I think Dresser's interested. And, to me, I was like, is he really interested? I know he's from Iowa, but he's been gone for a long time. He's probably lived away from Iowa as long as he lived in Iowa. And, he was an Iowa Hawkeye, not a Cyclone. And he's been in Virginia, and he's got all these connections and recruits out there. To me, I was like, is he really interested? And then you find out he is, and it's like, wow. I mean, how can you not want to bring like this in? So hats off to Pollard. They went in financially. They went in to their guy, and they got him. And, Iowa State fans just have to be ecstatic about this hire.
I would think so. And like you said, he's been gone for a long time. I can't remember. I feel like it was Grundy something. When he left Iowa in the 80s to take a job at some small Virginia school, after a while, his success gets him noticed. He gets picked up and hired at Christiansburg Virginia High School, which is the premier program in that state. They're I mean, I don't even really know what to compare them to because, I mean, they're just a straight dynasty that hasn't gone away since he's been, since forever in Virginia. He spent
almost
a decade.
An Apple Valley type program,
There you
they
go.
just dominate their state.
There you go, Apple Valley. Yeah, so he goes out there, he spends a decade at Christiansburg. Tom Brands leaves Virginia Tech for the Iowa job. They hire, Dresser, and he spends a decade at Virginia Tech. So, like you said, he's been gone from Iowa a long time. This was obviously a great opportunity to come home. A lot of people, this was the funniest thing. Like you said, he was at a top 5 program. He's got an awesome recruiting class coming in right now at Virginia Tech, and he lives in Virginia. Let's not discount how great of weather-wise that is compared to Iowa. He's got older children who are, they're established in school. I don't really know how old they are. I haven't creeped on them that much, but to just rattle that off the top of my head. But I saw at the press conference today, they're not young kids. They're older. They're, middle school, high school age. So he is uprooting his family, and, people are like, why would he do that? And, you mentioned the family coming home, being around his immediate family back here. But another thing you got to look at is Iowa State saying, hey, here's $2.25 million over 7 years. We're going to make you one of the highest paid coaches. I am aware when I say this that Virginia Tech was willing to up his salary significantly, but, Iowa State's giving him a huge payday. As much as Virginia Tech's willing to pay him, I don't know if they were willing to up his resources for his assistant coaching staff to go out and get some major players there. I don't know if Virginia Tech is willing and the donor base can fund a regional training center or wrestling club, because the Cyclone Wrestling Club is well funded here in Iowa. I don't know if he can have the same support, resources, facilities that, he can get. So it was so crazy to me that I was seeing people from other states saying, people not in the Iowa area saying, why would Dresser go back? It's almost like these people had their head buried in the stand. I'm going to call them out. One of them was a Penn State fan, just not understanding why he would come back. So I agree with you. Slam dunk hire, and he's getting the support that he needs to build Iowa State back into what they need to be, a top program.
Well, you know why the Penn State fans saying it, because they've only been a program for like 6 years, right? They just came onto the scene when Iowa State hasn't been very good. But anyway, Iowa State's a traditional top 5 program. They've always been a top program. Maybe they haven't been the last, 5, 6, 7 years, but that is a top job. You get the right guy in there, you get the boosters on board, you get the alumni on board, and that support's going to be incredible. I know Iowa State fans are hungry to get back into that top 5, to be contending every year, to be a winning program. And I truly believe if they get behind Kevin Dresser and they start filling the stands again and really buying into it, I believe that this can be a premier job fairly quickly. It's going to take a little bit of rebuilding. He's got some work to do, but, I think he's a good guy for the job, and this can be a very premier job, and I can't wait for the day when Iowa and Iowa State is a hotly contested contest again, because that dual meet is as fun as they come, and that place will be rocking.
And anyone listening to the Dresser Presser, as we're dubbing it, the Dresser Presser is up on IAwrestle, and you got Kevin saying, one of his long-term goals is to beat Iowa, and he feels like that's a fair goal because Iowa is, they're a benchmark. They're a program that's been around as a top dog for a while now. They're like Oklahoma State. So to set a standard to beat them means Iowa State's in a good position. So I like Dresser. He also referenced that he went a little crazy on Jason Bryant's podcast last year. He acknowledges that, and I think that's going to make the Iowa State rivalry fun, because you can't have a coach not afraid to put it out there and not call it like he sees it, because it just kind of makes it takes away the fire, it takes away it gives fans something to talk about, and when they know that Dresser's going to get fired up or he's going to say something crazy, they want to go to that duel, whether it's in Iowa City or it's in Ames, which Ames really needs to help with crowds. And they want to go there and they want to see what's going to happen so that when it's talked about afterwards, they can say, yeah, I was there.
Well, and here's the other thing for you. We're getting lost in this, and Dresser's getting lost in this, but my little piece of advice for him is first, worry about Doug Schwab, worry about the program he's building. They got to worry about beating you and I first before they can run into Iowa, because Schwab's on the way. How fun is it going to be to have Dresser, Schwab, and Brands fighting for recruits? And to me, having all three of them is going to be just incredible to cover. These guys are all great interviews. They're all great coaches. They're all great people and great recruiters. And I just hope they just lock I don't want anybody getting out of state anymore. We had some really fun classes coming through in the next few years. And, I hope Dresser puts as much emphasis on recruiting the state of Iowa as Brands and Schwab have. And I just think we're going to have some incredible battles with all three of them.
Absolutely. And I think one of the big things about Dresser having a successful, tenure, these 7 years, what's going to be really important is how he builds the staff around him. That's going to be key. And, we saw when Tom Brands came back to Iowa, he brought back Gable, and he had him on the staff. When Doug took the UNI job, he brought in his brother because, his brother is a guy that had head coaching experience. So it's really important to have those complementary pieces. It doesn't have to be, certain people with experience. It just has to be somebody that complements you. And looking at Dresser's current staff, he has Tony Roby, who's been at Virginia Tech just as long as Dresser has, 10 years. Mike Zadek and Derek St. John are the other two assistants. They were both brought on the previous season, each of them getting promoted into a higher assistant role this year. And then looking at the Iowa State staff, obviously Travis and Trent Paulson have done a tremendous job. If you look at the recruiting class last year, which was a top 5 class, and this year, which I'm not sure where it stands, it's somewhere in that, probably 4 to 7 range. It's a really good class. A lot of those guys are talking about Travis and Trent Paulson and what they did to make them want to go to Iowa State. And then, of course, Angel Escobedo also on the Iowa State staff. So it's going to be real interesting to see, does he maybe want to keep a Paulson around? Are the Paulsons package deals? So he has to keep both. If he wants to just keep one, does that make him more inclined to say, I can really only sit one of you? So, and there's talks maybe one of them could be the CWC head coach. And I'm sure there's a lot of scenarios that probably aren't fun to listen about, but it's just going to be, I think that's going to be real important how he builds that staff.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got to worry about, getting into the culture here. He's got to worry about recruiting. He's got to worry about keeping his own guys. Maybe he ought to bring Jim Harbaugh in and make him sleep in Kanan Store's floor for the next 2 weeks. I don't know what the answer is, but they got to worry about keeping the guys that they already have in-house first and foremost. You have guys like Leisure and Coleman have said they're committed to Iowa State. They're coming, but you've got to, worry about, do we need Gomez and Jake Aller and some of these guys, do you need to keep them? So there's a lot for them to figure out. The nice part about this is it's kind of a weird transition with Jackson still running Iowa State and Dresser not being at Virginia Tech anymore. It's a little bit of a weird situation, but at the same time, Kevin Dresser right now can concentrate on strictly recruiting and building that alumni / booster support, whatever it may be. But he's got, most of these coaches are worrying about recruiting, worrying about their own team, the postseason, all those things. He's going to be able to jump right in, get in with these guys that are already on the team, get on the recruiting trail, and not have to worry about running practices and worry about the postseason. So it's going to give him a little bit of a head start to hopefully, lock some of this in before the end of the season, so he can make sure that guys aren't trying to leave, and he can make sure that these recruits still want to come.
Absolutely. And while we're talking about these recruits that are with Iowa State right now, or we know Austin Gomez, Jake Alar, and Ethan Smith have all requested releases from their scholarship. The other big names, like you said, Leisure and Coleman remain committed. Also, Pennsylvania Prep. Jared Verkleeren remains firmly committed to being a Cyclone. We do have a little bit of an update that I haven't put out there yet just because I didn't really know how I wanted to go about this, but Jake Alar is, it's a weird situation getting released from scholarship. I have a feeling there's a lot of nuances to it, but when I spoke with Jake this week, he told me that he believes he has his release, and I believe he's going to pursue, likely Minnesota seems where people are talking, but I think he's officially out of the fold for Iowa State. And I also spoke with Maryland Prep Ethan Smith. He told me, he spoke with Dresser already, and when he talked to Dresser, when he got the job, he told him, I still want my scholarship release. And, I don't know if, Dresser's going to make it a priority. He's still got a little bit of time before he has to give a definitive answer. Maybe we see Dresser take a plane trip out to Maryland and sit down and talk with Ethan because he's kind of at a need weight at that 174, 184 area is where he projects. So I think that's going to be the interesting storyline is will Ethan Smith stay on? Because I think Gomez is probably – he'll lean to stay if you give him the right pitch.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely – it's got to be a priority. And like I say, keeping guys like Storr and Parker and, all those guys that have been there for a year, I mean, that's got to be a huge priority too. You already know what you have with them at the college level, and, they've proven that they can wrestle at this level. So, to me, those guys are maybe even a bigger priority more than anything. And, you just got to lock that down, keep the guys that you have, bring in some of your own guys and, just start building this thing back up.
Yeah, and we'll see if, Virginia Tech currently has 4 top 100 recruits in this class. We know Cole Manley. He's come out to our Night of Conflict. He's the first Night of Conflict event. He says he's remaining committed to Virginia Tech, but, he's got John Boris, top 20 commit. Hunter Boland's a top 50, and then he's got another guy, Mecky Lewis from New Jersey. He's got a couple more guys committed, and it's not, kosher maybe to talk about, but
Moore as well from Ohio, correct?
Moore's a junior, yeah, and Brent Moore is his brother on the team, but it's not, like I said, it's not kosher to talk about, but it'll be interesting to see if any poaching goes on, if you know what I'm saying. So,
Virginia Tech handles it this time.
Yeah, and yeah, even releasing just recruits, I think that'll be another, or not recruits, releasing current wrestlers, like you said. Obviously when Jay Borschel, Brett Metcalf, Dan McClare, Joe Slayton, and T.H. Leet wanted to come to Iowa, it was no bueno. But 10 years later, it's a different AD. It's a different situation with the coach leaving. They have an heir apparent in Tony Roby, who's the interim coach right now. Definitely a different situation. Virginia Tech might be more inclined to be more lenient toward the Dresser disciples, I guess. So, and while we're talking about team composition, Lars, I
don't know where this one's going.
Yeah, this is fun transition. We can talk about an All-American that will not be on the Iowa State Cyclone team for the 2017-18 season, and that is one Patrick Air Downey III. He is definitely off the team. What do you think of this news? Loaded question.
Yeah,
Good
loaded
luck.
Question. I don't think Pat probably listens to us, but my honest opinion, if you really want it, is I agree with it, and part of me wonders why I took this one. This guy is just an incredible talent. Anybody who's followed his career, there's just no doubt that this guy can wrestle. He's done it at every level. He's a junior college All-American. He wrestled upperweight last year, hardly got any matches in, was hurt and was an All-American. He's had success on the freestyle circuit on the senior level. Just an incredible wrestler, but at some point, is it really worth it? And I know people see the Twitter stuff, and he's been running his mouth, and even Coach Jackson asked him to stop, and lots of people have asked him to stop, and that's a bad thing, that's a distraction, but there's a lot more going on. Don't let those tweets fool you. Don't let other stuff fool you. Iowa State's not going to kick him off the team just because of social media presence. I don't think it's necessarily our thing to get into on this podcast unless Ross wants to divulge it, but there's more to it. He hasn't been a great teammate. He hasn't been a leader. He hasn't held up his end of the bargains for his scholarship at Iowa State, and to me it's the right move for Kevin Jackson, and it's the right move for the team going forward to build this without Pat Downey.
Yeah, I think you're right, and to say what we've heard probably isn't fair to Pat, considering Iowa State's not going to confirm it, and we're not hearing Pat's side of the story, so it's a little unfair to say what we said because it's all hearsay. But suffice to say, we know he broke team rules. He's gone as far as to confirm that himself on Twitter, so I feel very confident in saying that he knows he broke team rules. What he feels is that he was breaking these rules last year, and the staff didn't care, which, I can't confirm that either. All I know is, Downey's he's a handful. And like he said, I'm not surprised that the way this turned out happened. He's a different cat. And he's probably going to be on 6 other podcasts this week. I know for sure. Lars, before we recorded this, I was listening to him on the Inside Trip podcast, which is 2 guys in Ohio. I mean, I have no idea. They said they were planning on talking to Downey all year, but just like, boom, Pat Downey just got on, a random Ohio podcast.
Yeah.
So,
and, it's even stuff, after the fact, like, we talked about guys like Rocky Lombardi handling stuff with class, and Pat Downey just takes to Twitter and starts calling people out and calling Iowa State out and immediately saying, what schools are out there, who wants to recruit me? I'm going, you know what I mean? Like, there's different ways to go about things, and to me, if I'm a college coach, I'm just at this point not interested. He's an incredible talent. He is. I don't think he would have done it this year, but he is a guy capable of making the national finals. But is that worth team chemistry, and is that worth, just dealing with all these issues and being that upperclassman that these, guys are coming in, these new recruits are coming in, and young guys, is that who you want them looking up to and seeing? And it's just a 1-year thing. It's going to be a 1-year fix for whoever brings them in. So, to me, as a college coach, it's just not worth it at this point.
Oh, man. Well, and I think, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't really care if they do because it's not something you see every day. But I believe Pat would have to graduate from Iowa State to transfer. So he can't just go to some team. This isn't like, if I'm trying to think of a junior, I'll just throw out Brandon Sorensen because he's first junior comes to my head. If he wanted to transfer to, now I get Missouri for some unknown reason, he could do that. This transfer, if Iowa gave him a release, that's all hunky-dory. But Pat Downey started at Nebraska, so this would be his 3rd Division I team. And the only way that would work is if it's a grad transfer, and that's what I've been told. So I don't see how Pat Downey ends up on another team because he's got to graduate. I know grades have been something of a sticking point with the Iowa State staff and Pat. They've butted heads and they've they've had to keep on him, make sure things are going well. So I just see, Pat Downey wrestling. I'm going to be really surprised. I'm not going to lie, if he's on the mat for any college team.
Yeah, I mean, if it is
D1.
college, I think it's almost got to be a D2, D3 type situation. But to me, at this point, why not just move on to freestyle? If you want to keep wrestling, you've got a proven track record that way as well. Do you move to a Colorado Springs or something like that and just, move on to the next stage and focus on that? And, I just, like I say, I don't think it's going to happen at the D1 level at this point.
Yep, and like you said, he's an incredible talent. You can't take that away from him. It's just kind of his off the mat and his personality that kind of makes him difficult to deal with. But and hey, kind of a random off-topic deal with this news. Did you realize we were the ones that broke the news to Pat Downey? He's no longer on the team.
I did see that message that he sent that supposedly we were the ones. So interesting there. Along with that, I know. Again, I don't want to sound cryptic. I don't want to sound like other people that have said things like this, but we've heard some things behind the scenes about different ways that maybe Kevin Jackson has handled tough situations, and with that, some people close to the program, it wasn't a surprise maybe that he wouldn't have known right away, but still odd, especially to kick a guy off a team. You'd think you call him into your office and let him know what's up. He says it didn't happen that way. We obviously haven't heard the other side of that story either, so weird situation all the way around. There's a lot of stuff going on at Iowa State right now, but, get through these next few weeks, and it's a fresh start, and it'll be one without Pat Downey.
Definitely an interesting situation. And to wrap up our Iowa State coverage here, Lars, I got a little nugget that I was able to hear today that's going to be up on IAwrestle when you're hearing this. So I feel fine saying that Sammy Colbray, 197-pound true freshman for Iowa State, is going to be applying for a medical red shirt. We saw Sammy thrust into action the second duel of the season, very first week of the year, versus North Dakota State. KJ put him out there against NDSU at heavyweight. He took a loss. Then they came back and had the Harold Nichols Open was their next event. He wrestled in that at 197, didn't have great results. Next weekend, he headed out to Nebraska, I believe, for the UN Kearney Holiday Open, wrestled there. But then we didn't see him on the mat. And about a month into his absence, I reached out to Iowa State, kind of asked what was going on. At the time, KJ told us it was a day-to-day injury. They didn't really know. They didn't have a timetable for his return. Didn't really sound optimistic that he'd be back anytime soon. And that was in December. Obviously, we're in late February now. There's one event left in the season. That's the National Collegiate Open for non-starters. So I went ahead and reached out, and Iowa State confirmed that he's that injury he got back in November, that's held him out to this point. That it stuck with him, and because of that, they're going to go ahead and apply for a medical red shirt. And I think there's something about it has to be done at the end of the year. I don't know if you can do it in season, so they're not 100% sure that they got it, but I think they feel pretty confident. So that'll be good news for Dresser. Kind of, gets an extra year back on a guy that was a 5-time Fargo national champ. So potentially some more good news to go along with the Dresser signing.
Yeah, definitely. I hope for his sake he gets it back. Like say he was just kind of thrust into action. Wasn't something that people thought was going to happen at the beginning of the year. So it'd be nice for him to be able to get another year back. It'd be great for Dresser. It'd be great for Iowa State. So hopefully he can get that and get another shot at his freshman season.
That's right. And the last big thing I got to talk about, Lars, is probably the least surprising news, but potentially some of the biggest news we've had on IAwrestle in a while, that Nelson Brands has committed to Iowa. Let me get some hot takes on this, Lars. What do you got?
Well, one of my favorite moments of the state tournament, actually, outside of the wrestling, you weren't quite in town for this one yet, but I believe it was a Friday morning or Thursday morning. Kirk and Alex and I are sitting up in a suite that we had got from somebody, and we had a D1 coach up there with us, and he's watching different recruits, talking about different kids, and he obviously was well aware of Nelson Brands and was watching them, and at one point he just turned around and looks at Kirk and I and goes, "Nelson Brands is good." Like it was a statement, you know what I mean? Like everybody knew he was good, but you just watch him at times this year and you're just like, wow, you know what I mean? Like, just that, as he put it, actually, if you haven't watched the interview, he wants to wrestle a suicide pace. And I love that term. When he started talking about a suicide pace, and it's true, you know, yeah, he got tested in the last 2 matches of the state tournament, but, you know, his first round he had 14 takedowns, and the next one I think he had 11. He had almost 500 takedowns in the season. The kid started wrestling in 6th grade. You know, I don't know if people even realize that or think about that. He's been wrestling for 5 years. He's a 2-time state champ, and just the progression he's made from not qualifying for state as a freshman to winning as a sophomore, you know, in a very highly contested bracket. And then this year, just his almost domination of the state. You know, Cade Lahr tested him twice. Yant tested him, but, you know, he ran through a lot of people. And I just think he's got even a lot more room to improve, which is crazy to say as good as he is already. But, you know, there's still a lot of things he can clean up. And, you know, like I say, it's not a surprise, but Nelson Brands is good.
Nelson Brands is good. Yeah, there's a reason that he had, like you said, almost 500 takedowns, and the next closest guy to him wasn't within 200 takedowns. That's an incredible pace. Some people, you know, I don't know actually our demographics of who listen to this podcast, but when you go back and think about those Iowa City West teams of the mid to late 2000s, we're talking Nick and Nate Moore, Derek St. John, Grant Gambrell, Jack Hathaway. I mean, there was a lot of good guys that go through that program at West. And we're talking 4-time state champs, you know, guys. Derek St. John goes on to be a 4-time All-American, national champ at Iowa. So we're really freaking good guys. And Nelson crushed their high school takedown record as a junior. And he's got a lot of room to go. I think he's up 200 on Nick Moore, right? Or Nate Moore. He's up 200 takedowns on Nate Moore with a senior season to go. Yeah, Nelson Brands, great kid. My favorite thing about Nelson, I think, is that he refuses to acknowledge that Terry is his father in the way that you want him to. And, you know, I don't know how many times I had to prod him. And I just wanted him to say, like, yeah, it's crazy that my dad wrestled for the best program of his era, and now I'm going to go wrestle for one of the best programs, you know, in my era. And it's the same one. You know, I just wanted him to say something like that. And he's just like, no, I don't really think about it like that. I just think about it as what Tom said. My style is going to thrive at Iowa. And, you know, that's all you can get out of him. So I just love it that he's so bullheaded that he won't even give you what you want in an interview. I'm sure I'm just not the best at it, but no matter how much I prod, I can't get him to say it. So hats off to Nelson for picking the place that, you know, he set a goal, like you said, when he started in 6th grade, that's where he wanted to go. And now he gets to live out his dream that someday he'll be able to, you know, potentially don that black and gold singlet in Carver.
Hard-headed, hard-nosed wrestler. Reminds you of somebody else in that room, doesn't it?
Doug Schwab was pretty good. Oh,
well, that's you, but the apple doesn't fall far from the tree on that one.
No, it doesn't. No, yeah, he's a good guy. And one of the things I liked about another thing is in his interview was that Tom Brands, you know, when Nelson reached out to him to talk to him or you know, however it worked, and they're having their conversation, their recruiting talk, and Tom says, you know, he didn't like that other schools were talking to him. You know, he it made him jealous that, you know, this is a guy that he wants, and that's why he came after him so hard right now. So it's a fun story to see, you know, someone as talented as Nelson going to wrestle for Uncle and Dad, at least for us. Maybe it's not cool for Nelson, but it's cool for us. So
absolutely. And I know there's some talk out there, and I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe Iowa sign another really big-time recruit out of the state of Iowa here in the next week or two as well. So keep your eyes on IAwrestle for that.
IAwrestle, we are just churning out that news. It's been an incredible 7 days. I don't even know how many articles and interviews that we posted, but it's got to be like 100 by now. It feels like.
I don't know that we've even collected the full number, but I believe we had over at least 15,000 photos from the state tournament that were taken by our photographers. So, you know, we're going to be posting some of those. We haven't even, I don't think, seen or scratched the surface on everything that we have either. So it'll be kind of fun to go through all those, find some of the best pictures, and get those out to fans as well.
Yeah, 100%. Camp Kramer uploaded 3A finals. I need to tweet that link out. So hopefully by the time you're listening that you've already gone through them. Do you have any other storylines that you wanted to talk about that we didn't yet?
Man, we've been on for a while. We've hit a lot of huge ones. The only other thing, you know, we won't get into a lot of detail this week, but there is a lot coming. Keep your calendars open. March 11th, Cedar Falls, Iowa, War at West Gym. We got some monster matches coming. We're still talking to a lot of great wrestlers. It's going to be just an incredible event. So please make your plans. March 11th, War at West Gym, Cedar Falls, Iowa. We'll all be there. We're going to have some great matches for everybody to watch.
Yeah, listen here. Unless you're an Ohio high school state wrestler or a Pennsylvania state wrestler who'll be wrestling at their state tournament, you don't have an excuse to not be at this event. So really looking forward to it. Hopefully get some ticket information going up soon. That'll be through Eventbrite, just like we run through Night of Conflict. So if fans familiar with that will be able to check that out. Just want to throw another thanks to MyHouse for taking care of us on this podcast. They do so much for us. Like I said, check out MyHouse Sportswear. Chad Lohman's the rep for Iowa, I believe, still. So give him a call. Go hook your team up. Freco season's coming. And I'm sure, you know, there's clubs out there looking to get some pretty sweet gear for their teams. And MyHouse, they take care of it. So might as well call them up, see what they can get for you. I'm sure they got a great package deal for you. So, all right. And, of course, follow us on Twitter, IAwrestle. It's also our Facebook page, facebook.com/IAwrestle. You can follow us individually. He's at Lars IAwrestle, and I'm at Ross Duchek. So thanks for tuning in. There's a lot to talk about, and we got a lot of firepower to come back with next week. So thanks for tuning in.
Know when the whistle go.